Good afternoon. If you are watching this in the afternoon, this is something of a Viva correction or a Viva clarification because yesterday I put out a Viva on the street where I've been documenting the updates going on during the Quebec curfew, Canada's response to the COVID crisis pandemic. The most recent updates that I gave related to what the government has now imposed on travel, air travel. So international travelers coming into Canada or returning to Canada, all international flights have been restricted to 4 destinations, 4 arrivals: Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and Montreal. I was talking about the measures that the government said it was going to impose. A few weeks ago, Trudeau sent out or tweeted out several tweets which raised a lot of eyebrows and caused a lot of stir. The tweets announced that the government was going to impose mandatory testing on everyone arriving in Canada on international flights, that they would have to stay in a government-approved hotel pending the results of their tests. If their tests were negative, they would nonetheless have to go quarantine for 2 weeks at their home or a place of quarantine. If they got positive results, they would then be transferred to designated facilities, quarantine facilities. Now, in the update I posted yesterday, I referred to an article or a release coming out of the JCCF, which is the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, and they were saying how since the January 29th press release from the government announcing these measures that would be implemented in the future, the JCCF issued a release on February 5th saying that they have suspended or delayed implementing the rules and policies, or whatever you want to call it. And this faced with public backlash. People were offended and shocked at the unconstitutionality of these measures. The JCCF release also did note that some people had in fact already been detained, taken from the airport after getting a positive result, either for antibodies or for antigen or antibodies. Don't know exactly if it was for COVID or the antigens, but after having gotten a positive test, they were in fact, without being able to consult their family or lawyers, taken to designated quarantine facilities. The JCCF was up in arms about this, threatened litigation, and apparently in response to this, the government delayed or suspended the rollout of these policies. This is where semantics is important, and I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea or interpreting things wrongly. It's unclear if the government has suspended or delayed the rollout and whether or not it is in response to the JCCF threats of lawsuits. But one thing is for certain, that since the January 29 release, where the government said they're going to be implementing these measures, there has been a delay of the rollout. And it was reported in the Gazette, the Montreal Gazette, that the government is delaying or suspending the rollout of these measures, pending, I'm not sure if it's a question of tinkering them to make sure that they're constitutional or just getting the logistics, but they are suspending the rollout at least until February 14th, although Trudeau has said he wants to get these measures in effect before spring break, whenever that is. So it was a suspension of sorts. It's unclear if it was in response to the threat of litigation, and it's unclear if the measures that are going to be imposed are going to be tinkered with to be somewhat more constitutional, because everybody should appreciate that being forced into quarantine, whether you think it's justified or not, it is a form of confinement. It is a form of detention. And typically, there is a thing called due process when your constitutional rights get violated. So the idea of being forced into quarantine with no sort of due process, without the ability to be heard by a judge or consult with an attorney or contest, there are some constitutional questions to that. So it's unclear if the delay of the rollout is purely for logistics in response to this, to make sure that it's somewhat more constitutional, or just because the government can't get its act together and is delaying the rollout and it's going to roll this out regardless. So that is what we're going to be following. The official press release that the government issued on January 29th is still on the website. The JCCF release, which came out a week later, is out there. The news is out there that they are suspending the rollout. We don't know when it's going to be implemented, under what terms, but the government has still announced this is their intention. One of the other problems in all of this might be communications and not issuing statements by tweet and then leaving society in a guessing game in the following weeks. Not just for those planning trips during spring break. Personally, I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't risk any of this. I'm not risking coming back and going to a government designated quarantine facility, but not just for people planning vacations, but for people who were out of the country before these measures were announced and have to plan their return. So Don't rely on Viva for travel advice. Consulted the government, but this is the latest of the news. These are the latest developments. I believe, is Winston actually asleep? The dog might actually be asleep. Anyhow, we just went for a walk, which is why he's wearing his nice little coatie. Those are the updates. I'll have more as there is news. Take care of yourselves in the meantime, and in as much as possible, try to keep smiling. See you soon.